Welcome to the Wealth Guide podcast. Today we're joined by Zaynah Altaf, Head of Human Resources at NEPEAN, and Salmin Khan, a renowned accountant from Tact Advisory. Together, we will explore the crucial role of financial well-being in the workplace. Zaynah, an advocate for employee empowerment and a member of the UN Women Australia, will share insights into how NEPEAN has developed its comprehensive financial well-being program, the successes they've observed, and the future trends she anticipates in this area. She'll discuss the importance of these programs and provide practical advice for HR leaders looking to implement similar strategies. Salmin will offer his perspective on the long-term benefits of financial literacy for businesses and discuss the role that accountants and financial advisors play in crafting effective financial education programs. He'll delve into the challenges companies face when fostering financial literacy and the innovative strategies that can maintain engagement and enhance financial understanding among employees. Join us as we uncover how companies like NEPEAN are paving the way for financial literacy in the workplace and learn how you can apply these practices to benefit your organization and employees. So without any further ado, let's jump into today's episode. So thank you, Zaynah. Salmin, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. Salmin, I might start with you, if anything. Can you tell me a little bit about your career path leading up to becoming an accountant?
Oh, mate, every kid's dream is to become an accountant. I remember sitting with my lunchbox in year 4 going, you know what I want to be? I want to be a chartered accountant. No, actually, I started off, we immigrated here. I came here in about year 10, year 11. And, you know, when you come to a new country, everything's new. Nobody really knows which way they're going to go, but it just so happened I did well enough in school. They saw a bit of potential in me and someone recommended go apply for a scholarship. I applied for the co-op scholarship at UNSW. I was lucky enough, I think there were 3,000 applicants, 13 of us got in, and I still don't believe how I got in because there were some very capable people in that program. Spent 4 years doing that, and part of that program is that you get to do placements at 3 companies. So I did Coca-Cola, I did McGrath-Nicol, which is the Rolls-Royce of insolvency firms. And then I did the Department of Commerce, New South Wales Department of Commerce, which taught me enough about industry that I said, you know what, I'm comfortable enough to stay as an accountant and I know which direction I want to go down. I spent a year after that with Campbell's Arnott, so the maker of Tim Tams. I worked in the reporting division, working very closely with the BI team, so building systems and stuff. Didn't really think it was for me because I realized I liked being at the coalface where I'd spent time dealing with clients. And then I went into tax, so I took a bit of a pay cut and I went back into the tax and consulting world, went back into insolvency because you know, I just needed something exciting, something to get my blood moving. I did about 5 years at a BRI Ferrier and I dealt with some really interesting things there. For example, we ran one of the largest baby chains in Australia for 4 months. And this is me at the age of 25, looking after the operations with 564 staff. We had such things like the entire team up in far north Queensland decided to go on strike and we had to negotiate with them from a little boardroom in Sydney. Did my time there. And one of the things I found in insolvency was there were so many good businesses, good people who had money, who had the wrong advice. And if they'd had the right advice at the right time, they wouldn't be in this mess. So instead of spending $120,000 closing down their business, for a fraction of that, they could have taken their business to new levels. They could have had a great life. So I saw a real gap in the market because when I asked them, why didn't you speak to their accountant? They go, well, the accountant didn't know any of this. And I was lucky enough to, because of I had such a varied experience and I'd studied business and I'd studied my CA and I did the insolvency course through QUT. We had that skill set where we can turn things around. We can, I spent enough time working with lawyers and in the legal space that I'm not a lawyer, I can't give legal advice, but I can tell them, listen, this is the point where you absolutely need to get legal advice. And if you don't, X, Y, and Z can happen. Which a lot of people don't have that knowledge of. So yeah, that's how I ended up starting my own practice and it's been really good. We work with a lot of really interesting people. I'm loving it.
Yeah, awesome. And I'd imagine you'd have a lot of tough conversations at both the employer and employee level. What are some of the discussions like in that space, particularly around finances?
Employers, most of them businesses. You get a whole range of them. Some people are super conservative and their biggest thing is, do we have enough money to pay tax? Their priority is paying tax every month, which is rare, but it's encouraging that they've got that at the front of mind. And the opposite end of things is guys who they don't care how they get that Ferrari, but they need that Ferrari. And that is the absolute pinnacle of their responsibility, that they get that cherry red Ferrari, and their taxes aren't really that important. The hard part is you actually have to sit them down and say, listen, these things are great, but you need to make sure that you maintain compliance. You need to make sure you stay to your debts and look after your employees. So, I think we had a couple of employers who said, oh, do we really need to pay superannuation? And you absolutely need to have that conversation with them going, mate, if you do not pay your superannuation, you're doing your employees out of what their entitlements are. So yes, as an accountant, I will leave if you do not pay your superannuation.
Yeah, for sure. And at the employee level, what do you find is the biggest obstacle? Do you find like their literacy levels in terms of how they manage their finances is an issue?
It depends a lot. So for example, if you're talking to blue collar employees, and I'm stereotyping here, but they don't generally grow up liking to read stuff. And a lot of literacy is now coming from social media, and it's coming from places where they really shouldn't be getting it. I think the biggest names in financial literacy now are people like Andrew Tate, who, Hustlers University and do this and you'll become a millionaire.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it because it's a rabbit hole and you end up in a huge grift. You lose money that way. I'm sure some people have made some money somewhere, but as someone who's done all my training, I've got 15, 16 years of experience. I can tell you consistently, that's not the way that you make money. You don't go into get rich quick schemes. And so you go down one thing, and a lot of people just say, well, get into property and you'll make money regardless.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are getting put down that rabbit hole where they go in with the wrong kind of agent, and a mortgage broker sells them a particular deal. So I've had multiple employees come to me after setting up these structures and going, well, we spent $20,000 setting up this super fund and we've lost 50 grand on the property because we bought it sight unseen in regional New South Wales because we were guaranteed. So one of the things I really find is there's a lack of financial literacy, and it's not their fault. They don't teach us this stuff in high school.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate or unfortunate enough to have had all this training with money. I mean, everything is dollars and cents in the accounting degree. So it's like breathing for us. Whereas a lot of people, if you're working in trade, even some of the biggest offenders are medical professionals. Now, these are super skilled individuals. They're spending something like 15 to 20 years after high school training. But some of the worst financial decisions I've ever seen, and they've admitted it to me in the first meeting, they'll turn to me and say, you will never see anyone who screwed up their money as badly as I have.
Yeah.
And they're right. So it's not a question of intelligence. It's more they don't have the right conversations at the right time.
And I think that's contemporary. That's a contemporary issue, if anything, especially with social media and AI. I'm finding a lot of people are listening to either misinformation or disinformation, or they're applying strategies to, somebody else's personal situation as well. And maybe a question for you, Zaynah, is considering that you at NEPEAN have implemented a financial wellbeing program, do you think that's one of the benefits of people who are financially illiterate, if anything, and they can sort of get an understanding of who is a financial service professional that they can listen to?
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking of it holistically there, many people are currently facing many different types of financial stress, and whether it might be due to debt or living expenses or unexpected financial emergencies, this sort of stress can obviously lead to impacting their personal health, specifically their mental health. And in return, it impacts the business there because it impacts their personal performance whilst at work, higher absenteeism levels, lower engagement, to lower productivity. And there is, because of the increasing financial concerns, it's growing more complex. There's an increasing expectation that employers will continue to support employees through navigating this change. And then again, having this financial wellbeing program in place with Mayfair, that's run in partnership with Tact Advisory and Ryker Capital, it helps alleviate these pressures there from us, but not only from our perspective, but also it helps the employees get access to the best resources in the industry, essentially, and not only educate them with their financial goals and their challenges, but let them get access to the best deals in the market at the moment when it comes to financial products.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, removing the veil and, if anything, showing people what is available to them. And then that way they can get a better understanding of, this is appropriate for me or not. Maybe, Salmin, from an accountant's perspective, what do you think is the longer term benefits of having a financial wellbeing program in place at an employer level?
So I don't think there's ever been a situation in the history of the world where someone's gone, you know what we need right now? Less money and less knowledge. So a financial literacy program, a financial well-being program, it'll always have a positive impact because the obvious aim of it is to generate more knowledge and more money for your employees. But from an accountant's perspective, for a business, regardless if it's a 5-person, someone who's running a restaurant or a multinational, is one, you have more engaged employees. So I think they say it's really expensive to be poor. And the analogy they give is if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of money, you'll end up buying cheap footwear. And it costs more to keep replacing that footwear than if you just bought a good pair of boots at the start. The whole concept of getting that wellbeing program is to get their headspace in to buy that good pair of boots at the start so that they have a good, happy, wealthy, happy life. So from an accountant's perspective, having a financial wellbeing program means that their staff are more engaged, will have more money. I think the stats are that people who are financially distressed are 1.3 times more likely to face depression. I think I saw a stat the other day that 19% of divorces have a financial disagreement component to them. This is something that you can fix for your employees and they will love you for it. I mean, yeah, you can keep giving them pay rises and pay rises and pay rises, but if that money is just going to something that is not productive for them, it's putting water into a bucket with a hole in it. The aim is to fix that bucket. And suddenly they're looking after themselves. They are self-sufficient. They have a sense of autonomy. This is the kind of employee that everyone wants.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is people have a conception that they tie their occupation to how much money they earn. And therefore they sort of think, okay, I need to get a better job to earn more money. But it's not always the case. Look, especially in this day and age, you see YouTubers who, make money out of nothing. There's a guy that puts rubber bands around a watermelon until it explodes. So but what they do and what they do with their money are two completely separate things. And I think one important point that I wanted to touch on there was the amount of stress that it removes once you've got your finances sorted. Because once you've got your finance sorted, that's the catalyst to then sort out your lifestyle or your health and that sort of. So you sort of think, well, I've got my finances sorted. How about I start taking care of myself physically, mentally, personally, whatever it is, or take care of my relationships. So that I feel that's really important as well. As an accountant, what role do you feel that employers have in developing these programs, or maybe what role do you have in developing these programs as an accountant?
Okay, so first of all, it has to come from the employer. We can't go and force them to do it, right? But at the end of the day, let's look at the role of the employer. Your job is not just to give them money so they give you work. You're essentially, I think people say that culture is the operating system of any business. And if you've got that mentality that you are only as good to me as the money I pay you and the work that you do, they will just leave when they find a better job. There's no sense of community. There is no sense of loyalty. They don't feel engaged. They're not encouraged to implement new stuff at work because they're just here to check in and check out. So as an employer, you don't have a responsibility to them, but you're dumb if you don't. Because if you encourage your staff to look after themselves, they feel more loyal towards you. They feel like, hang on, these people are actually looking after me. How can I look after them? And what I've found is that when an employer, I'm not just talking about providing financial well-being programs, when they look after their staff. So for example, I've got a restaurant, it's a very high-end restaurant, but what they do is before every shift, the head chef makes a great meal for his staff, not just rice and curry or whatever it is. He makes a top level meal for them, so they can taste the actual food that they're going to be providing to their customers, and they love him for it. They have tasted the food. They can recommend it to their customers when they come in. And the whole point of having a financial well-being program is this is another thing that says to your staff, I care about you. Let's grow together because I want you to do well. It's not that I'm just going to pay you money and that's your problem. I'm giving you the tools that wealthy people have typically kept to themselves. And that's a big message to employees.
Today's episode of the Wealth Guide podcast is proudly sponsored by Ryker Capital.
In a world full of financial uncertainties, Ryker Capital understand the importance of safeguarding your lifestyle and the well-being of your loved ones. That's why we're committed to providing you with personally tailored insurance plans and financial advice that aligns with your unique needs and goals. Ryker Capital is your guide in the complex world of superannuation and retirement planning. Our team of experts are dedicated to helping you navigate these complexities with ease and confidence. We're here to empower you with the knowledge and strategies you need to build wealth and secure your future. At Ryker Capital, we offer a comprehensive range of services designed to optimize your superannuation. We work closely with you to determine the best contribution strategy, regularly review your superannuation fund, set achievable financial goals. Our coaching and consulting services ensure your financial plan stays on track with regular reviews to adjust to your changing circumstances and aspirations. Don't leave your financial future to chance. Take control today with Ryker Capital. Contact us for an obligation-free discussion about your financial plan by calling us on 1300 179 537. Let us help you secure your finances because you deserve it. Ryker Capital, your trusted partner in financial success.
Yeah, I think that's important for businesses to understand in particular, because at the moment or in recent history, we've seen relatively low unemployment rates, and we've seen high job vacancy rates as well. So that being said, it's not always about, adding more money to an employee's pay packet or adding more money to a position in order to attract talent as well. There has to be some sort of value add, and I really feel that this can be a value add. Zaynah, maybe I wanted to ask, how do you see this in terms of an offering as maybe a HR representative? How do you see this as an employee offering for a group, if any?
Yeah, look, if anything, it's proven in this day and age that companies that do offer such high caliber programs to their employees not only are demonstrating that strong commitment to them, their employees are coming back with a higher overall sense of well-being, which then in return increases engagement and loyalty. But again, in a competitive job market, having such a strong differentiator in place and it being attached to a company's employee value proposition there not only helps attract top-tier talent, but also can reduce the impact of high turnover within a business. Yeah. And we've definitely seen it within NEPEAN. It's been a very positive experience there. It's allowing employees to be a lot more comfortable talking about money within the workplace there, and therefore creating that stronger sense of community. We're starting to see candidates come through being incredibly interested about the product and how to gain access to it from the moment that they've been onboarded. We've also come across instances where employees are reconsidering their options to leave the business because of the program they're being put in place and the commitment that we've been able to give to them supporting their finances. They may not be able to get that in other employers elsewhere.
Yeah, 100%, because especially in this economic climate, again, people are going to find themselves in financial stress with, rising cost of living, high cost of living, high inflation, high interest rates. And a lot of people are going to put themselves in that position of financial stress to sort of turn around and say, well, I need more money. I need a better paying job, or, otherwise I can't sort of afford to live, to fund day-to-day lifestyle expenses. But putting these financial wellbeing programs in place is making people more financially literate and giving them the power to maintain their finances, if anything. How do you encourage employees to participate in these programs? Because look, I understand that it's all well and good to put these programs on, but how do you get employees to turn up and maintain their sort of engagement with these programs?
Yeah, excellent question. So when we actually decided to implement the program into our workplace, we actually worked quite closely with the team, and they offered a full launch program across all of our workplaces where they physically came out on site. They hosted lunch and breakfast and morning teas as such. But as part of the meals that they offered, they actually held on-site awareness sessions with the employees. And it wasn't just a business development representative coming around and waving the flag saying, use us. It was more sort of, they had professionals come out. So we had accountants come out, mortgage brokers come out, superannuation professionals come out, financial planners coming out and actually talking directly to employees about the changes that's happening in the current economic market and how, if anything, they can take advantage of these changes. That completely flipped it. If anything, that actually gave the employees the power to go ahead and ask more information, inquire more about their finances, give them the courage to ask more questions. And after they started utilising the service, they were actually going back and speaking to their colleagues at work, talking about how beneficial the program is and how confident they are now talking about their finances. And therefore, that word of mouth has actually broken the barrier to entry, as you've mentioned there before, but also further outlined the need that, yes, it's a good product. Yes, there's trust in the product. We can utilize it there because our colleagues are now starting to implement it there as well.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear as well, especially because I think that we need to move the conversation about money from private discourse to public discourse and bring it to a point where people are seeing other case studies and saying, well, hey, that person saw a mortgage broker, that person saw a financial planner. Maybe I should see that person too to see how they can help me with my financial situation as well. Maybe a same question for you, if anything, Salmin. How do you feel employers can get employees to maintain engagement in a financial wellbeing program like that?
Look, at the end of the day, it's all about encouraging the right conversations. Any topic that can go either way. So we're talking politics, family, sex, money. It can be shaped in the way you have the conversation. So if you have the conversation about, say, politics in the right place, you can have a great country. If you have it in the wrong space, you end up with people wearing red hats. The whole point of encouraging people to go down the right path with financial literacy is to get them in a better space. So how do you do that as an employer? You start conversations. You might do something as small as have a library of financial help books. I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad is where a lot of people got their start from. Now, I don't agree with everything in it, but it starts to get you on the right mindset where there is good debt and there is bad debt. There are assets and there are liabilities. How can you tell the difference? Now, that's something I've seen at a place that I used to work. They used to have a library available for employees. And that's something that I encourage employers to do. Start the conversation. Have you read this book? Have you done that? Give them access to maybe a paid podcast.
Yeah.
This is a pretty good podcast. They could send their employees here maybe.
Only this one.
Yeah. Okay. But it's more, you provide conversation starters, and it's not about let's everyone kumbaya stand around and how much money did you make last week? Don't talk about stuff like that. It's more, have you heard about this particular kind of investment? What do you think of property? And it's more sort of breaching those taboo topics in a comfortable manner. And you'll find that as an accountant I'm not a financial advisor, but when we go in and speak to employees, they're very tense because they're told don't talk about money. Yeah. And anyone who talks to you about money is trying to sell you something. But when you speak to someone who's actually been through this process, people who come from generations of wealth, they're very open about this stuff because they understand this is just a tool. Money is just a way to enhance your life. And if you encourage that conversation in the workplace as an employer outside an accountant or financial planner, it makes everyone's job a lot easier.
Yeah, 100%. And you touched on a couple of topics there throughout, listening to podcasts and, reading books, and that just bridges the gap to some level of financial literacy as well. What topics do you think are essential for financial literacy? If you had to pick 3, 4, 5 topics that, everybody needs to become educated on in order to manage their finances better, what would they be?
Look, as an accountant, obviously, I have to say tax. I think a lot of people, they put their taxes off. I know people who put their taxes off 2 or 3 years just because it's in the too hard basket. Okay, that thing to one side. Yes, you're going to get fined for that. But I encourage, this is going to sound wrong, but I encourage people who have 9-to-5 jobs, PAYG, do their own taxes.
Yeah.
Now, that sounds wrong coming from an accountant, but it encourages people to at least look at their finances once a year. This is how much money I made. These are the deductions. What am I actually doing? And they'll ask you the question, did you spend any money on self-education? Oh, shit, I didn't.
Yeah.
If you look at things like that, it at least gets you a start. So tax, absolutely. Learn the basics of tax. I've got a TikTok channel. I teach people in this stuff. I get great feedback because they're learning stuff that they're like, why didn't we learn this stuff in high school? Now let's move on to stuff that's probably more financially productive for them. Superannuation. Absolutely. We did some research and we found that people who work with a financial advisor over the long term make 5% more than people who don't. And that's not because financial advisor is some rocket scientist who can predict the future. It's their job. They know which funds are going in what direction. And even as an accountant, I didn't pay that much attention to my super. And I work with money all day. And my fund wasn't doing well. I didn't even know. I didn't read the emails. Just having someone there to teach them about this stuff. In the long run, it'll make them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the last thing is absolutely your mortgages. People assume you just get the mortgage and you leave it as is. I think we call it the lazy tax. That's when the banks move the interest rates around and you're like, you know what, it's probably the same that everyone's charging.
Yeah.
But you can save hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're just aware of that. And if you just got that little 2% more knowledge than the rest of the populace.
Yeah, the loyalty tax is a big killer. And I think a lot of it is, bridging the gap and having a team of professionals behind you, if anything, to support you, to have those regular conversations, if anything. Because if it's not at the forefront of your mind, you're just going to forget about it. And as the years pass, it's going to be to your detriment, if anything. Yeah. So maybe, Zaynah, one of the last questions I have for you is, if any employers are considering a financial wellbeing program, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, good question, because it can be quite a daunting topic to undertake such massive change. I think the first thing any HR professional or employer need to embark upon is ensuring that they have a very strong understanding of their workplace and understand the financial challenges their employees may be facing. And then from that, taking that brief and doing their research that complements with ensuring the providers that they do select understand the challenges that they're going to come across. The other thing I'd also suggest is ensuring that they do actually work quite closely with the organisation to ensure that the implementation is done correct, the rollout is strong, the aftercare with the employees is recurring as well. So it's not just a set and forget conversation and therefore the employees in limbo, not knowing where to go next. And consistently enforcing that conversation with the employees is also quite important as well, because that way, that I think that actually helps them build a lot more confidence when it comes talking about their money.
Yeah, awesome. No, great advice. And maybe same question for you, Salmin. Being somebody who has a relationship with both sides of the fence, employer or employee, what advice do you have for anybody that's looking to implement a financial wellbeing program like this one?
Really understand why you're doing it. If you're doing it just for a box tick, which I think we also work very closely with people who provide counselling services, and there are employees who just need to have that box ticked for workers' comp purposes or whatever it is. It's probably not for you because this is something that you're actually looking after your employees, and you're not going to get reports saying this is how much money we made your employees. This is more you're looking after them, and in the long run, you want to retain staff. You want to attract really good staff, and that you want to have a good culture of growth in your company. So one of the things I'd say consider is why you're doing it. If you actually want to look after your staff, yes, absolutely go through with it. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Look, guys, I really appreciate your time. I feel that employers and employees have a better understanding now of, what the gap to financial literacy and financial well-being is. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time and thanks for the conversation.
Thanks, Gianni.
Thanks, Gianni.
Thanks so much.
The information provided in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as personal advice. Always consult with a qualified professional or expert in the relevant field for personalised advice tailored to your specific situation.
If you enjoy the content we bring you on the Wealth Guide podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe and share with your community. Let's grow this community together and make financial literacy accessible to all.